Welcome to the Shift Spot. Today's leadership and management topic is about leadership aspirations, but more specifically, Ken Paskins and I are going to be talking about how to become the leader that you want to be. Over the last, I guess it's been what, Ken, 3 weeks? This is week number 4. Over the last 4 weeks, You and I have talked about a lot of different topics within the area of leadership and management. So today I want to kind of wrap things up and culminate all the things we've talked about and bring it together around really how to become the leader that you want to be. So I really look forward to jumping into this last topic. And what are your thoughts today, Ken, about I'm wrapping things up and bringing it all together?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've picked up some stuff myself going through these, and I'm excited to see how you bring it home. So let's go.
Cool. So before I get started, if you're listening or watching this last episode of the leadership and management topic here on the Shift Spot, I'm actually going to have an ebook and a worksheet that will be available both in the Shift Spot and outside of the Shift Spot. If you're listening on the podcast, you're not part of the Shift Spot, you should definitely think about becoming part of the Shift Spot community. If you're not and you want to get access to it, we'll make sure that you get a link to the actual ebook and workbook if you're listening to the podcast. So let's go ahead and jump in. So first question, Ken, are great leaders born?
I know you're going to disagree with me. So I'm just going into it knowing that. I believe that fundamentally great leaders have some DNA that they are born with. Now, are they just born? No, I know you're going to disagree. I believe that you can mold and everything, but I believe there is something in there that makes people actually step into leadership or not. So that's my gray area answer.
I think your gray area answer is probably pretty accurate. So this debate on leadership skills and whether they're they're innate or they're learned probably has been debated since the caveman.
Yeah.
And just guessing. So let's jump in like cavemen and really dig deep into whether or not people are born with the gift of effective leadership skills, or like the rest of us are kind of relegated to not being great leaders. Yeah. I personally feel that leadership can be developed, but I think it also can be something where it's the people we're surrounded by very early on in our life. Yep. So I've got my own perspective, Ken, on those early childhood mentors, the men and women in our lives, and how they shape and frame our birth as a leader. So the question was, are great leaders born? They are born, but it's also, are they born into an environment and surrounded by people that actually enable those skills? Yeah. So tell me a little bit, I just want to delve back into your early childhood a little bit.
Oh God, okay.
I'm not going to go into what made you the person you are today. So this is not a coaching session.
Yeah.
But tell me, who were some of the first leaders in your life that, if you look back and say they shaped some of my leadership skills and how I am today as a leader? Who are some of those early leaders in your childhood that really helped you shape your leadership, your leadership style?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds silly, but my mom, actually, she was a very strong individual, very a lot of empathy, could make a friend anywhere, always involved. She was, when I was a young kid, she was my soccer coach. She's, PTA, you name it, always in those leadership type roles. So honestly, yeah, I never thought about it, but probably my mom.
Your mom, cool.
Yep.
My mom is definitely up there for me, and it's probably a little different. My parents were divorced when I was 5 years old, and my mom worked a job making $3.75 per hour at a local pharmacy back in Pennsylvania in the late 70s, early 80s. And I saw this person that struggled, but never really let those struggles hold her back from growth. And eventually she worked her way up, and she worked into the pharmacy in the back as a pharmacy tech, and then eventually, moved that to a hospital. And she really always had those leadership skills of just saying, we're going to figure it out, right? We're going to come up with a way to figure the problem out. The other person that really shaped probably my more the empathetic side was really my grandfather. My grandfather was this, quiet man, big man, World War II vet, never really talked about, his experience, which I think you and I have talked about that, right? A lot of vets don't talk about their military experience. But I did Meals on Wheels runs with him as a child, like a 6-year-old.
Cool. Yeah.
During the summer, I eventually became a board member at Meals on Wheels, which kind of shaped that. But I think if we bring it back full circle, those experiences as we grow and as we get older, the people that we surround ourselves or that are forced upon us, right? Like our parents and teachers. When I say forced upon us, our teachers, we don't have an option to choose our teachers when we're young. Right. And then we go through high school, we were in sports. I was on the track team. So my track coach was a great influential leader for me. And then eventually whether I was in the military, so many military leaders were great examples. All of those things I saw traits. And even you, I learned a lot from you as you being the, fractional chief operations officer for a company we worked together in. And I learned a lot from you, right? I've learned a lot from you throughout the time we've worked together and we've partnered together. So I think whether you're peers or you have a direct leader or even somebody you actually just observe, you can learn a lot from those people. So I don't believe you're born, but I believe you're born with the skills to be able to learn and to adapt and to absorb leadership skills. So I don't think we're born with the leadership spoon in our mouth, but I think we're able to kind of grow into those.
Yep, I concur.
So let's talk about the advantages of being a skillful leader. Before I share the 4 that I put on here, what do you think are some advantages of being a skillful leader?
I don't want to assume I even know what that means. But what do you mean advantages?
So there are 2 types of leaders. There are skillful leaders, and then there are unskilled leaders, right? And I wouldn't even call them leaders. There are people that haven't built the skill of becoming a leader, and maybe they're just managers. Maybe they're good, maybe they're not good. So when you become a great leader in your organization, what are some of the advantages of being a great leader?
Okay, so the advantages, I assume that you're talking about if I was a skillful leader, what are my advantages? What
are the advantages for you so that if you work for me in an organization or you are a leader in your business or even in life, right? What are some of the advantages of being a great leader?
Yeah, so the advantages are, I think that it's easier to get what you expect, right? Because you understand how to paint that vision, lay out that roadmap with clarity, right? Which I'm not putting this in 4 buckets, but so I'm just kind of rambling. I think it leads to less disappointment. When you look at employees, it leads to less turnover, better retention, less or greater execution, right? They're committed to it, right? Versus maybe a manager that just they're there to help them, basically put in their time off or whatever. But those are some, I guess, some quick things that come to mind for me.
Those are all great examples. These are some of the 4 that I came up with. So the first is more valuable professionally. Now, what do I mean by more valuable professionally? You're more valuable. So if you're a business owner, you're more valuable to your team, right? To your employees. But when I say more valuable, if you're a intrapreneur working within an organization, you're more valuable to your employer. So if you're watching this and you're like, I don't really want to be a leader, I don't want to manage people,
right?
You're going to be stagnant in your career, right? You're going to stay in the same level within your career if you don't look at opportunities to grow as a leader in your organization. And your employer will find you more valuable in your organization by becoming a great leader. Yeah. If you're a crappy leader, you're definitely going to be passed over. In the military, poor leaders they attrit, there's attrition, right? They basically get pushed out of the military. So military officers, if you're a great military officer, you will continue to ride the ranks.
Yeah.
But if you're just a mediocre leader, you will definitely, there will be attrition. You will definitely be pushed out. Passed over is what they call it in the military. And so you will be passed over in your business as well. Number two is more attractive professionally. Now, what is the difference between value and attractive, right? From your perspective, Ken, what do you think?
So valuable means that, well, that's a great question. What's the difference between valuable versus attractive? Attractive would be, I guess, people want me to work with them. Valuable means that I'm an asset worth keeping.
Correct. The value is what we value as there's a monetary value. So people will pay you more to become because you're a great leader, they will pay you more. They will value you more. They will ask you for your input and feedback more. Attractive are those that if you're an attractive leader, you will be attracted to other people, right? It's no different if you're an attractive human being. That's, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but no different in the business. If you're a great leader, people will be attracted to you. You have more opportunity, right? So the value is where you're going to be more valued internally, whereas attractive is you're going to be more valued externally. If you are a great leader as a business owner, venture capitalists are going to find you more attractive to make investments into your business, right? If you're valuable, as a leader, you're going to have a better opportunity to be retained or a better opportunity, to kind of rise yourself up in the ranks. Also, being an attractive leader, also another one that we don't think about. You're going to attract other founders in your business. If you are a startup company and you're looking for other founders, you're going to be more attractive to other people. If you're not, people are going to be like avoiding you and you're going to be in a kind of your own isolated island. So I've seen the opposite of attractive leaders. I've found ones where I'm repulsed by them and I don't want nothing to do with them, right? But there has been valuable leaders within my own organizations where I've wanted to raise those people up in the ranks so that they can grow professionally and that they would support the overall mission of the organization.
Yeah. And actually, just to spin this a little differently for those that in our community, they're owners and CEOs, how this might show up if you have some leadership problems from my perspective is that I never get what I want through my employees. I don't understand why they don't see it the way I do. I don't understand why I have to make all the decisions. I don't understand why I'm constantly working in the business, right? I don't understand why, there seems to be disengagement or employee turnover or why it's difficult to attract the right people. I mean, a lot of those things reflect up to the top, right? And those are things that, that why, being a CEO is easy in some cases and harder in other. You can invest and you can put a lot of money in and create a company, but if you don't figure out the basic leadership aspects, then there's going to be a lot of pain that comes with it until you figure it out. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, for the ShiftSpot community, that the point that you made about attracting great people, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. One of the qualities of a great leader is being able to attract team members, quality team members. Right. And I see it today in the people that I'm coaching, the CEOs of organizations I'm coaching. Oftentimes, poor leaders attract poor quality employees, right? And so great leaders attract great quality employees. Yeah. So I think being attractive professionally as a leader is really important. Yep. Number 3, positively impacts your personal life. And what I mean by this is, I'll give you a good example. I remember very early on in my career, I was in Atlanta for a conference downtown at the big conference center down there. And I was with a group of people from a very large Fortune 100 company I worked for. And there was about 20 of us going out to dinner one night, right? Walking around downtown. And the people in the front of the pack that were kind of like, they just made decisions, says this is where we're going, right? And they just took off. Whereas other people in the back were like, well, maybe do we go here for dinner? Do we go there for dinner? Like, hey, did we forget John? The leaders were the ones that were in the front and just literally were like, no, we're going here. And I'm making that executive decision because it's going to be able to take 20 of us, right?
Yeah.
And it was kind of a moment where I recognized that the people that were leaders could influence others, right? And they would more likely, when you positively influence people, you are more likely to be treated with respect in return. So, you think about the crappiest leaders in the world, how they get, and I know this is going to be a not so popular one, but take somebody like Trump, right? Not a great leader. But he has influence over other people, and people follow him, right? Because he has a way to influence other people, and he has strong leadership traits that people follow the guy. People listen to the guy. Weak leaders, nobody's going to follow you.
Right.
So whether you like his politics or you don't like his politics, right? And I'm not going to speak on my own opinion, but it doesn't matter because he has the ability to influence people. And in the presidential election, the ones that are skillful leaders are the ones that attract people during the election cycle. And we see the weak leaders following kind of, and doesn't mean they could have been a great governor in their state or, a great business owner in whatever area, but they're not great leaders.
Right.
So again, I think leadership quality allows you to influence other people, and in return, you get treated with respect by those that admire you. Being a good leader enhances your confidence, right? Using Trump as an example, the dude exhibits so much confidence.
Yeah.
Like beyond anybody I've ever seen, right? Elon Musk is another one. We've talked about Elon Musk in some of these, and Elon Musk exhibits huge amounts of confidence.
Yeah.
And those are qualities of a great leader, is exhibiting that confidence. So those are my 4, Ken.
Okay, cool.
Let's go into qualities shared by great leaders. So what do you feel? And again, I'm going to show you my 8, but I want to get your perspective. What are some qualities that you think are shared by great leaders?
I would say empathy is one. Decisiveness.
Yep.
Able to paint a vision and see I call it the battlefield, or view things as a chessboard versus checkers. What are some other great qualities of leaders? Authority figure, right? Meaning that they speak with authority. Calculative, right? Meaning that I think that kind of ties into, those are some that come to mind real quick.
So those are definitely all common traits in shared by many, right? When it comes down to the 8 qualities shared by great leaders, the first and number 1 is communication skills. They're effective communicators.
That's good. Yeah.
That you can't get any higher than that skill. If you don't have effective communication skills, you're going to struggle as a leader.
Yep.
Number 2, we talked about this in our first episode for this leadership and management, is delegation, right? That secret skill that you have to have. So delegating effectively. Great leaders know how to delegate. Number 3, leaders that are adept at choosing team members, right? You talk a lot about this, Ken, right? Right people, right seat. Great leaders know how to put the right people in the right seat on the bus.
Yep.
Number 4, honesty, right? Great leaders are honest. They're honest with their team members. They're honest with themselves, right? They know how to make decisions quickly. A lot of the traits you were talking about can kind of roll up into many of these areas, right? Conviction, right? Like your business owners that you're talking about in the shift spot have to have conviction. If you're going to be a great business owner and you're going to run a successful business and be a great leader for that business, you have to have conviction. You need to know what values you stand on. That's where the core values come into play, is like you're convicted that the core values are the most important things in your business. You have conviction around your mission and your vision. You have conviction about the market that you deliver or that you're delivering your products and service to. Going back to the last one, confidence, right? The one thing I've always admired about you is like, you have a level of confidence, and I'm sure that you have insecurities just like every one of us,
Yeah.
but you exhibit confidence in everything that you do. And that allows you to be successful. Flexibility, rigidness doesn't work well.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think, Ken, the last one, number 8, being intuitive, kind of having intuition around what's going on and just having that gut feel. Tell me, out of all 8 of these, other than number 1, because I don't care what you say, number 1 is the most important one.
And I agree.
Which one do you feel is a weak point for you that you would have to develop and grow personally?
Boy, my weakest one. I would say flexible. I mean,
you're not flexible, you're kind of rigid, which kind of goes to your DISC assessment profile.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that as I've grown and everything, that I've become more flexible. But if I'm to pick a weakness, which is the assignment, that is probably I would say that would be my number 8.
Number 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, or no, flexibility, but that would be my lowest one.
That's your lowest area if you were to go off these 8 areas. Mine, surprising, may not be, is actually number 6, confidence. Yeah, definitely. I have struggled with confidence throughout my career, still do to this day. And a lot of it's driven by being told when you're a child that you're not good enough, right? Yeah. So I've struggled to overcome that, and I've gone to therapy around it a few times to like try to figure out why am I afraid of like judgment, right? Yeah. I'm so afraid of being judged, which I know, like I'm confident in other areas, right? I know, like I can get on this thing and talk and be confident about what I'm talking about, but I struggle in other areas. I can get in front of a group of 1,000+ people and speak confidently about a topic, but I still struggle with the confidence to do other things. So, what do you feel is your strength?
Let's see. 2.
2, delegation. Yeah, you're great at delegating. You can delegate up and down, which is not a skill that not everybody has.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably my number 1.
Were you born with that, or where did you learn to hone that skill? What was your kind of defining moment of learning delegation?
That's a great question. I don't know if I can pinpoint on it, but I do believe that I've spoken to a lot of folks that they kind of question over the years, like, why have I never gotten promoted above manager, right? And I look at all of those folks that, are might be great managers, and we'll even call them leaders for their teams or small teams, but their inability to move up the organization is often tied to their inability to delegate and get work done through others. Right. So, but I don't know if I can pinpoint back on time on where that started, how that started.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting perspective, and I never really looked at the people that struggled and sat in the same position. I think people struggle to move out of that management role into other roles based on number 6, confidence, right? They lack confidence, but they also lack the inability. And but part of confidence is having the confidence to move beyond yourself and know that, and if you're going to grow, you need to delegate work. So I think it starts with confidence for sure. For me, I would say, I think number 7's probably one of my, I think communication. I think I'm a pretty damn good communicator, but I think number 7, flexibility. I'm like, you asked me like, hey, we need to pivot. Okay. And I just do it. Or it's like, hey, I know you don't do this. Like, this isn't your job, but I need you to pick up this ball for me. It's like, I don't really know how the hell to do that, but I'm going to figure it out. Right. So the ability to be flexible, I think I know some people hate this term, but I feel like I'm a jack of all trades and a master of few. But I like that because it makes me more adaptable and makes me more valuable to have skill sets across a variety of different areas. So Ken, this is one that I want to ask. Can introverts be effective leaders?
No, I'd say unfortunately, yes. And I can only say that because honestly, Jesse, I consider myself somewhat of an introvert.
Yeah.
And I fill up as an extrovert, right? Meaning that, I do enjoy being around people and it charges me and everything, but I'm not one of those guys that I need like 50 friends around me all the time, and all that. But if I get into a party or social situation, I mean, quite honestly, I think I'm a lot of fun and people laugh and have a good time to be around me. But I would say honestly, I'm an introvert by nature, and so yes, I will have to say that introverts can be effective leaders.
So studies show that 40% of the highest rated leaders on the planet have been introverts. I'll give you a couple of examples of some introverts. Bill Gates is an introvert.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue, does he have great leadership?
What's that stat again?
40% of the highest rated leaders are introverts.
Wow, I got to jot that down. That's a really interesting stat. I thought you were going to tell me, wow, nobody can be a great leader as an introvert.
Yeah, 40%. So that means 60% are extroverted, right? Which is fine. I personally would rate myself as an introverted extrovert, right? Like I my default setting is introversion, but I can turn the extroversion on. But Steven Spielberg is an introvert. Abraham Lincoln was an introvert. So there's a lot of introverts throughout history. So being an extrovert isn't a requirement to be a world-class leader. If you're an introvert, there's time to embrace leadership skills fully. And why am I talking about this? Because I want, being that a large portion of the population, especially post-pandemic, seems that more and more people are becoming introverted. Younger people oftentimes are more introverted now. In this new generation of millennials and Gen Zs seem to be more introverted because they don't get out as much, right? They seem stuck behind it. So if you're kind of moving into that pathway, or you're a younger leader and you're worried about, well, I'm an introvert, I'm not going to be a great leader, the first number one item is introverts are better listeners, right? There's data to suggest that introverted leaders are considered better listeners because they're actually able to absorb suggestions from other team members. Extroverts, which I'm going to talk about number two, extroverts are ego-driven, right? Which is how they got to be where they are. Introverted leaders tend to be less ego-driven. And there's a couple introverts are more willing to give credit to others because they don't want to be the limelight, right? They don't want to be at the spotlight pointing down on them, and they want to commit to the success of more altruistic ideas and reasons behind that.
And honestly, that's me. Whenever something happens, I'm like, hey, I owe it to the team, I owe it to them, right? They did this, not me, right? So
my father was an extrovert, and my grandfather was an introvert. Right. So having kind of a balance between an introvert and an extroverted male in my life, my father definitely wanted the credit. Right. Yeah. My grandfather didn't want anybody to even know he was in the room. So he would always give credit to other people. So if you pay attention to Twitter or social media and you look at some of the greatest leaders, when I say biggest leaders, like the ones that are leading major corporations or presidents, things like that, they won't give credit to themselves, right? The great leaders won't give credit to themselves. They will give credit to others. So
past presidents, past 10 years or 15 years or 20 years.
Very, very ego-driven.
Yes. Yeah.
Very ego-driven. They like to take credit for themselves, right? And there's actually a leader in North Carolina. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name's Jeff Jackson.
Mm-mm.
He is a member of Congress now. He was North Carolina representative. He's an active military reservist. He's an officer in the U.S. Army. He's based in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mecklenburg. He covers that district. He got elected. He was actually running for Senate, and then somehow he stepped back from being Senate and then ran for an open seat in the House of Representatives. I have never heard that guy give himself credit. He has always given other people credit. He literally gets on Twitter once a week and does a summary of his week in Congress. And when there's they've been talking about TikTok, he actually gets on TikTok and actually does a 5-minute segment of what actually does this mean to the people of his district. So again, he's an extrovert probably, just seeing the guy, but he literally did, when he was running for Congress, he literally went to every small town in North Carolina asking people for input and insights, so that when he walked into into Congress, he was able to basically speak for the people. So that to me is a great leader.
Yeah.
My wife hates him for some reason, but I think he's a great leader. But introverts are more likely to be calming influence during turbulent times.
Agree with
So
that.
when we think of the pandemic, which ones were calm, right? And
Yeah.
that's a rhetorical question. I want you to think about people in your life and the leaders around you. And introverts are more calming during difficult times. They're not going to be like freaking out, trying to figure out what's going on. Number 4, introverts prepare extensively. They're more likely to really think through the possibilities and be proactive and be thoughtful during these difficult times, because they're adverse to drama and the unknown.
Yeah.
Right. They don't want drama in their life. They don't want the unknown. So they're more likely to really think through opportunities and possibilities. And introverts like their environments to be less stimulating than extroverts.
Yeah.
So I am like that. That's why I'm a minimalist. I hate, like, my house when it's overwhelmed and lots of activity. Like, I am out of my element. I'm like, I need to go to the woods and sit and be quiet.
Yeah.
So extroverts love chaos. And Ken, that's a question for you. In people that you've coached and worked with, I want you to think of extroverted leaders and introverted leaders that you've worked with. Do you find that the extroverted leaders thrive on chaos?
I do.
Do you have any examples without sharing their names?
I mean, I've got lots of examples, but I'm trying to figure out how to do it without sharing names. But yeah, I mean, it's that typical, CEO visionary that, everything's extreme, everything's a fire, everything's the end of the world. Every week we're making a change, right? And it whipsaws the organization around. But it's interesting, as you stated that, I kind of questioned myself, but then I had to rethink this. My DISC profile actually says that Ken steps into chaos with ease. So what that means now, and I was taking that a little differently, it doesn't mean that Ken likes chaos, right? It means that I can go into it as an introvert calmly and deal with it and not go crazy.
Right.
Where some of those others, they'll go crazy. Oh my God, what happened? Right. And oh my God, we got to do this. This is the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and it's not the end of the world. Right. It's not. And we get our people all fired up and concern and anxiety up, and then we execute. We make mistakes, it's just not great. So
yeah, I mean, it goes back to, I went back to number 3, is the calming effect extends beyond the team members to your customers and to your leadership team. So the extrovert, which you and I worked with an extrovert before together, like, we saw those traits, right? Those extroverted traits created chaos. And although a very nice human being, right, he thrives in chaos.
Yeah.
And that's how he like loves that chaotic environment. So I've seen it in some of my coaching clients. I have a coaching client that I won't share details, but they run a very large law firm, and they thrive on chaos. And I always ask the questions like, why do you love chaos so much? Like, they're like, I don't love chaos so much, but you have it all the time. It's always present in your life. Like your personal life, your business life, every aspect of your life is chaos. And they're like, so I think it's something that a lot of extroverts will thrive on that. I think number 5 is a very important item to talk about, is introverts build more meaningful relationships. So you said something that I think is important, Ken. You don't need 50 buddies surrounding you. You probably have a handful of good friends, maybe a few.
Very few. And and we chalk periodically, and it's like we didn't miss a beat.
Right. I'm the same way, right? I'm more, I used to probably early in my life be more extroverted, but as I've gotten older, I've become more introverted. And I have like 2 or 3 good friends. That's it. And we don't see each other that often. I'm having lunch with them on Friday. And we try to get together periodically, like we call it a bro brunch on Sundays, like once every couple of months. But when we meet, it's not chaotic. We don't go out and like get drunk and dragging each other down the streets of some random town in the South. But I have more meaningful relationships with them. They're not superficial. But my one friend within that circle, he is an extrovert. He has like 100 friends, but they're all very surface level, superficial friends. Yeah. And but and his extroversion sometimes causes him to make all his relationships, including the one with me, superficial. Yeah. Right. And he easily, like, I think I have had lunch scheduled with him for the last 3 months, but we haven't had lunch yet because he's so busy meeting with other people because he's so chaotic. It's so chaotic. That he's, oh my God, I totally forgot. I forgot we had lunch today. Yeah. So yeah, I think introverted leaders get more out of their team members. Yeah. And their team members feel a greater sense of commitment to that introverted leader. So my intention really wasn't to talk too much about introverts, but we did. Yeah.
And also just real quick, as I reflect on that, Jesse, I mean, some of our listeners could go, oh my God, I'm an extrovert. I can never lead my team. And I think that my takeaway would be, no, you can. You just need to be aware of how you show up, how you impact others, right? And work on some of that, right? If you know you're an extrovert that can create that chaotic environment, all right, how can I work on that, right? So it's not chaotic, because guess what? Most likely your employees do not and will not thrive in that.
Right. Well, and I think I'm glad that you brought this point up. I think it's important that if you're an extroverted leader, so my point was not to say that all you extroverts out there don't know what the hell you're doing and you can't be leaders, right? Not suggesting that. Right. My point was there are introverted leaders that are sitting on the sideline thinking, I can't lead a team. They might be a solo that has great opportunity to build a business, but they're reluctant to build their business. Or they don't think they're a great leader, even though they have a team. I think what's important is that if you're an extroverted leader, an extroverted business owner, you need to create balance on your team and bring in a second in command. So if you're a visionary, you need to bring in an integrator in your organization that's more, introverted, that can really focus on the planning, really focus on leading the team, so that you can take your leadership strengths, which are the extroversion, the business development, the relationships, going out and speaking on behalf of your business, going out and raising money for your business. Those are skills that you are capable as an extroverted leader, that an introverted leader can hold the fort down for you. Yep. And I know, Ken, that's probably why you've been in sales roles. Yeah. So sales requires more extroversion skills, right? So you can turn them on and off. But the reason why you've thrived so much as a chief operations officer level executive is because of those introverted skills.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
So, next section, great leaders of the past. So tell me what comes to mind. Who is the greatest leader? And it doesn't have to be a business leader. It could be a global leader. Who's the greatest leader that comes to mind for you of all time?
George Washington.
George Washington. Give me a reason why you think he's the greatest leader.
Fighting was, not about him. It was about a greater good. When he became president, he turned over his sword. They wanted to elect him multiple times. He declined. He did not want to be a king. And he pushed away from power quite a bit, but was clearly a very powerful, highly respected individual that, made up some great accomplishments. So he was forced into general and president and leadership roles because he was just a pure leader. Right. But he didn't force it, want it, and demand it, like no names, but lots of political leaders these days, right? That want it for power. George Washington did not want that, but he could change everything for the greater good. So you have to be the leader if everybody around you is saying, dude, you're the leader. Yeah. And he comes across as one of those guys, I think.
There are a lot of leaders that are not leaders in the sense of, like, again, to your point, preaching across the country saying, I'm going to become the president of the United States.
Right.
There's the ones that kind of are quietly pushed to the surface because they're such great leaders, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first one that comes to mind was Winston Churchill, right? Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister during World War II, was known for his commitment to really inspire resistance against Nazi Germany during that timeline.
Yeah, good.
And he was able to thrive under really difficult conditions and showed great determination and devotion to his country, but not just his country, right? He was focused on the greater good of the world. Of pushing back the resistance of Nazi Germany during that time. And FDR obviously was able to overcome polio and paralysis to his legs to become the United States 4 times, right? Roosevelt successfully led the country through great depressions in World War II. So I think that one. MLK obviously led yet a dream of social change, and we're now seeing kind of the fruits of that. And as we're seeing kind of more diversity and equity and inclusion in society. Certainly we struggle with adopting some of those principles in our day, and we're seeing some resistance even in current days, but he was really one of the greatest civil leaders of our time. Even not really of my time, but before my time. And he had courage and perseverance in the stance of nonviolence. He was not about violence, right? He was not about going out and burning cities down to get his point across.
Yeah, we need more of that.
We absolutely need more of that. And Gandhi, right? Gandhi, when I was thinking through some of the greatest leaders, I was like, Gandhi comes to mind, because a lot of people don't know about Gandhi, but he was really able to push Great Britain out of India without resorting to any violence whatsoever. He was really an ordinary citizen, so similar to George Washington, right, was kind of pushed into that role and was able to lead a country to demonstrate civil disobedience without violence, right? And they were able to break free India from British rule and get freedom for an entire society. So number 5, your name, right? Every single person that's listening to this podcast, if you're in the shift spot, wherever you're listening to this, you have the ability to become a great leader as well. But the first thing you need to put down is you need to put down this one very heavy piece of baggage, which is your ego. A lot of these people put their egos to the side. And the leaders that carry a heavy amount of ego are the ones that don't last as a leader. And we've seen that in our history, right? Yeah. We've seen where like Barack Obama, again, whatever side you're on, he was able to inspire people.
Yeah.
He didn't lead via ego. He led people, which is why he was elected twice, right?
Obama, Reagan,
Ronald Reagan, same thing, right? Even George W. Bush in a lot of ways, like he didn't have a lot of ego. He's like, he ran as a president and he got elected twice because of it. So I think some of the greatest leaders lead without ego, and that's something that I think is important.
And there's a lot of people that are actually in leadership roles that, quite honestly, that are there because of fear, right?
Yes.
If you think of historical perspective, and I know this won't offend anyone, but Putin.
Yeah.
Not a great leader.
No, but fear, right? But fear is driven. Fear is driven. In order to instill fear in people, it comes from a place of ego.
Yes, agree. Yeah.
Right, because he wants power, and in order to get power, you have to have a big ego.
Yeah.
So the leaders, even if you look at, like, again, look at some of the activities of our recent past. How different leaders responded in those times, and which ones led via ego and which ones led with true leadership. Yep. And the unfortunate thing is we lack a lot of leadership in our government system in the United States right now.
Yeah.
What was that?
We've got a leadership void these days. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely are lacking leadership
system as well. Great leaders don't want to actually step up in political positions. Correct. So, but
in your businesses, every single business owner that's listening to this, you have the capability to truly become the leader you want to be, which is the whole topic of today's episode, is really, become the leader you want to be. You can look back and see the leaders you...
Jesse, just real quick, I want to change that a little bit.
Yeah.
The leader you want to be, the leader you have to be for your company and its success, right? So if you truly want to realize your vision and be successful, and get the results that you want and you have this vision of, there's no choice, right? You have to figure this out.
But I would argue that if we want those things in our business,
Yeah,
we have to want to be those things,
that's fair.
whether we like it or not.
Yeah, that's fair.
Growth comes from the desire of wanting change.
Yeah.
And if I see a business that I want it to be, I have to want to make that change in my life. If I feel forced by it, it's not going, the longevity around it will not last. It will be very short-lived.
Agreed.
Some people want to be great leaders, but they don't know how, and then they're forced into it, but then they resort to going back to being the same way they were beforehand.
Yep.
I see it every day in coaching. I can tell people all the time, you need to do this, but until they truly want to, they never change. So worksheet exercise. So these are the same questions that are in the worksheet. So you could do this without my worksheet, but I will give you, Ken and Winter at ShiftSpot and your team at ShiftSpot. I will make sure I give you access to the ebook. There's an ebook that's connected to this presentation. There's also a worksheet connected to this presentation that everybody in the ShiftSpot will get access to. If you're listening to this on the podcast, we'll make sure you get a link to download it below in the comments on the link, whatever platform you're on. But the first one is, how would increasing my leadership? So I want you to ask these questions of yourself. This is the exercise, right? How would increasing your leadership skills affect your personal life?
Yep.
So the question is how would increasing my leadership skills affect my professional life? So if you change your leadership and you up-leveled your leadership skills, how will it affect you professionally? How will it affect your team? And going back to, are you a valuable leader in your organization? Are you an attractive leader to your team? How do you become that leader? And it starts out by really understanding what skills affect you to becoming a great leader and how will it impact your professional life. The second one is, which qualities are common with great leaders are you lacking? Like I asked you, Ken, out of the 8 things, which ones were you lacking? And you picked flexibility, right? You're a little bit more rigid in your leadership styles. So becoming even a better leader than you are is figuring out, how do you exhibit the quality of flexibility and what are some things that you can change in order to do that? I would challenge you that every single quality on that list, you have the ability to change, right? You're not a 10 in any of those areas. You're probably maybe a 9 in some, but you could probably up-level your skills in every single one of those areas.
Definitely.
Whom could I approach to mentor my leadership development? If you're not part of the ShiftSpot, this is exactly what the ShiftSpot's all about, is like leadership development, mentorship, and basically becoming a better leader and building your business and achieving the dream of why you started this business in the first place. So establish a mentor, right? You can use coaches like Ken and I throughout your career. If you don't have a coach, you should have a coach. I think everybody at some point in their career, if you're going to go to that next level, you need a coach to kind of help you, hold you accountable and help take you to that next level in your leadership development. What could I do today to increase my abilities to lead others? I personally, Ken, out of all these questions, I think this is the most important question, is what could I do today to increase my abilities to lead others? What are your thoughts on that question?
Well, I mean, my thoughts are initially that it's kind of enlightening. Wow, I could actually change something today and actually become a better leader. So, because when you think of becoming a better leader, it sounds like it's a lot of work and takes a lot of time, right? And then it makes me reflect on, what could I change? Well, all right, so if I'm an owner and I hear people say, well, we just, there's challenges with understanding what you want, I could effectively put a lot of work into just how I communicate, right?
Yeah.
How I write message, how I articulate message, how often I repeat message, because it takes people multiple times to hear that. It takes, they say seven times, up to 7 times. Some people are audio, some are visual. So I could actually put work into that today. And by next week, I could technically become better at communication and thus a better leader. So that's how I thought through that.
Incremental change, right? I call it snackable moments in our life. We just make snackable changes, little bite-sized changes, and we will become a better leader every single day. Just if there's one skill that I think every leader can become better at every single day, is just listening better.
Agreed with that.
Right? Just listen more and stop thinking you have all the answers. And your team, you'll be very surprised by your team. Number 5, how could you become a better leader? How could becoming a better leader enhance my life outside of work? Right. And we talked about this during the presentation of how it will impact you outside of work, such as influencing, creating more opportunities, better referrals, just better relationships within your family, your familial structure, creating better relationships with your friends, right? Just becoming a better leader, I think, is valuable across our lives. Number 6, which past leaders do I find interesting? And then which is the closest to my style? So as part of this exercise, I want you to look at which leaders you find most interesting and which ones do you exhibit the same qualities as that person? And what are some of the qualities within that person that you could exhibit and change to become a better leader? I'm always trying to emulate other leaders, right? Like I look at great leaders and I'm like, I want to exhibit and emulate them in that particular area. And, you know, that's why we listen and read books, right? Because those people are oftentimes great leaders and are seen as great leaders. And we want to emulate some of those characteristics and traits.
Yep.
And last of this exercise is, what is the greatest barrier to growing my leadership skill? First, you need to understand what's the biggest barrier and then follow that up with, how can I overcome that? And that's by going back to number 3, having a mentor or a coach will help you overcome that barrier.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts on this exercise, Ken?
Now, this is very valuable. I would challenge the people that get this and think through this in the community, post on it, outside of the community, you know, reach out to Jesse or myself on it if you want to dig into this more. But this is a great exercise, these 7 points.
Well, great. So I know we're at the end of our time, Ken. Again, I so appreciate you inviting me into the Shift Spot community and letting me be part of this and letting me facilitate the last 4 weeks of conversations around leadership and management.
We'll have to have you back in a couple months for sure, Jesse. Do something else. This is fun.
Yeah, I look forward to it. So if you need to learn more about the Shift Spot, Ken, how do people learn more about the Shift Spot?
Yeah, just go to www.theshiftspot.com or shoot me an email at ken@theshiftspot.com. We're in LinkedIn as well. So multiple points to reach out to us, whichever is easier.
Great, perfect. And then if you want to learn more about me, Jesse Fry, you can go to coach.jessefry, Jesse, middle initial J, fry.com. You can learn about me and, you know, my coaching practice, the different things that I do. I'm actually in the Shift Spot community, so you can also join the Shift Spot and interact with me, Ken, and the other people within Ken's ecosphere and other members of the Shift Spot. Otherwise, Ken, thanks so much again, and I look forward to future conversations with you.
Thank you, Jesse. Always a pleasure. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day.